Welcome back to English Learn Day, the place where stories help you grow, succeed, and master your English naturally. Today, we're sharing one of the most powerful and courageous stories of our time, the true journey of Malala Yousafzai, a young girl who said no to fear and changed the world with her voice. Now let me ask you something. Have you ever stayed quiet because you were afraid? If you've ever doubted your strength, this story will show you that even in silence, you can be powerful. And when you choose to speak, you can transform everything. Malala was born in a small town in Pakistan, where many girls were not allowed to go to school. But from a young age, she loved to learn. Her father, a teacher, always encouraged her. He told her, "Your voice is your power. Never be afraid to use it." But then, things changed. A group of extremists took control of her town. They banned girls from studying. They closed schools. They spread fear. Many people stayed quiet, not because they agreed, but because they were scared. But Malala? She refused to be silent. At just 11 years old, she began writing a blog under a different name. She shared what was happening in her village. She talked about her dream to go to school. Her words were simple, but they were strong. People around the world began to read her voice. She became a symbol of resistance, of courage, of hope. And then, something unthinkable happened. One morning, Malala got on the school bus like always. She smiled. She sat with her friends. She carried her books with pride. But that day, someone was waiting. A man with a gun. He stopped the bus. He asked for her by name. And then, he shot her. The bullet hit her head. She was just 15 years old. The world stopped. News of the attack spread quickly, not because she was famous, but because she was brave. Because she was just a girl who wanted to learn. Malala was rushed to the hospital. She was unconscious. For days, people didn't know if she would live. But somehow, she survived. She was flown to another country for treatment. Her body was weak. Her voice was silent. But inside her, something powerful was growing, the belief that this pain would not be the end, it would be the beginning. The people who tried to silence her had failed. In fact, they had done the opposite. They had awakened a global movement. Leaders, teachers, students, parents, millions of people began to speak her name, to share her message, to ask the same question she once did: why are girls afraid to learn? Malala could have chosen to stay quiet after that. She could have lived a peaceful, private life. But she didn't. She healed. And then she stood up, taller, stronger, louder. She said, "They thought the bullet would silence me. But nothing changed in my life except this: weakness, fear, and hopelessness died. Strength, power, and courage were born." Her voice, once a blog, became a speech at the United Nations. And now, it was no longer just her fight, it was ours. Malala didn't ask to be famous. She didn't chase attention. She simply wanted one thing: to go to school. But after surviving the attack, her story became something bigger, a voice for millions of girls around the world who were still silent. She began to travel. She gave interviews. She stood in front of presidents, kings, and global leaders. And she didn't ask with anger, she asked with clarity, with heart, with wisdom beyond her years. In one of her most powerful speeches, she said, "One child, one teacher, one book, and one pen can change the world." These were not just pretty words, they were her truth. Because she knew how dangerous education could be to those who wanted control, and how powerful it could be to those who wanted freedom. She created the Malala Fund, an organization that supports girls' education everywhere. She wrote a book. She won the Nobel Peace Prize at just 17 years old, the youngest person in history to receive it. But even with all that, she remained simple, humble, human. And that's why her voice resonates so deeply. Because it comes from pain, but speaks with hope. Because it isn't perfect, but it's real. Because it reminds us that you don't have to be loud to make an impact, you just have to be brave enough to speak. If you're learning English, this matters. Because sometimes you're afraid to say the wrong thing. Afraid of your accent. Afraid of judgment. But Malala's story reminds us, your voice is too important to hide. And the more you use it, the stronger it becomes. So speak. Write. Practice. Not for perfection, but for purpose. Malala taught the world something powerful. Courage doesn't mean you're never afraid, it means you speak, even when you are. And that truth applies not only to global movements, but also to personal moments. Like learning a new language. Like saying your first full sentence in English, even when your heart is racing. Sometimes, the hardest part of learning is not grammar. It's fear. The fear of sounding strange. Of making a mistake. Of being judged. That fear keeps many people silent. But silence doesn't protect you, it limits you. Malala didn't wait until she was older, richer, or more fluent to speak. She began with the words she had. She spoke from the heart. And the world listened. Not because she had perfect English, but because she had something to say. And so do you. If you're learning English right now, remember this: every time you speak, you are doing something brave. Every time you practice, you are proving to yourself that your voice matters. You may not be on a stage, but your effort, your growth, your willingness to try, those things build a new identity. Don't worry about speaking fast. Speak with meaning. Don't worry about mistakes. Make them proudly. Every mistake is a sign that you're learning. That you're moving forward. That you're building something new. And if one sentence today is all you can give, give it. Say it with confidence. Because that one sentence is more powerful than silence. It's proof that you believe in your future. And just like Malala didn't let fear define her, you don't have to let fear define your learning. Malala believed, and still believes, that education is not just about school. It's about freedom. It's about choices. It's about having the power to decide your own future. Without education, people stay silent. They follow. They survive. But with education, people think. They question. They dream. And you don't need to sit in a classroom to begin. Education starts the moment you choose to grow. To learn something new. To challenge what you once believed was impossible. Learning English is part of that freedom. Because every new word expands your world. Every new sentence is a key that opens a door to jobs, to connections, to places and people you never thought you could reach. Malala risked her life for the chance to keep learning. And today, she reminds us that if you have access to education, you have a gift. A powerful, world-changing gift. The ability to understand. To express. To evolve. But with that gift comes a question: what will you do with it? Will you scroll and forget? Or will you sit down for 10 minutes and study? Will you stay quiet because of fear? Or will you speak, even with mistakes? Will you wait for confidence to arrive? Or will you build it, one word at a time? Because freedom isn't just given, it's practiced. And every time you choose to learn, you're becoming more free. More ready. More alive. Malala didn't wait for permission to use her voice. She gave herself permission. And so can you. So now ask yourself, what are you afraid of? Speaking with an accent? Making a mistake? Being laughed at? Malala was afraid too, but she didn't let that fear win. She faced something far more dangerous than grammar rules or pronunciation. She faced bullets. And she still chose to speak. And you? You have that same power inside you. Every time you open your mouth to practice English, every time you study when you could be scrolling, every time you keep going, even when it's hard, you're saying the same thing Malala said: I will not be silent. Learning a language is not just about words. It's about building courage. It's about claiming space. It's about saying, I belong here. My voice matters. And trust me, it does. You don't need perfect grammar to inspire someone. You don't need a big stage to make a difference. You only need one thing: to believe that your voice has value. Just like Malala believed. So today, take one step. Say one sentence in English. Write down one thought. Share this video with someone who needs courage. And if this story moved you, helped you, or reminded you of your strength, subscribe to English Learn Day. Because here, we don't just learn a language, we learn to rise. To speak. To live without fear. Remember, you don't need to be the loudest to be powerful. You just need to be brave enough to begin.